Stop. Right there. Look at these two magnets. When you try to push the same poles together, you feel that invisible wall of power fighting back, don't you? A stubborn air cushion. But here is the real shock. You have never actually touched anything in your entire life. Not that magnet, not the phone in your hand, not even your partner. What you call touch is actually a violent electromagnetic war at the atomic level. The electrons in your hand and the electrons in the object hate each other so much, they push back with everything they've got, creating the illusion of contact. So that invisible force pushing these two pieces of metal apart, it isn't magic. It is the original software of the universe. It is the very thing that keeps your body from dissolving into dust and allows the stars to shine. Today, we are going to shatter your intuition to find out what the hell is a magnet anyway? Why you can't actually touch anything. Let's do a little experiment. Press your palm down on the table. A little harder now. You feel the table, hard, solid, and real, right? You'd swear your hand is touching the wood. But in the world of physics, that sensation of touch is a flat-out lie. Imagine we magnify your hand 1 billion times until the atoms are the size of soccer balls. You'd see a terrifying truth. Everything is hollow. An atom is actually a vast emptiness with a tiny nucleus in the center and electrons racing around way out on the edge. If the nucleus were a single pea in the middle of a stadium, the electrons would be flies buzzing around the very highest seats in the stands. Between them, nothing. Just empty space. So why doesn't your hand pass right through the table like a ghost? Why aren't you falling through the floor this very second? It's because of the electrons. They all carry a negative charge. And in this universe, there is an ironclad rule. Like charges absolutely hate each other. When you press your hand against the table, the electrons in the outermost layer of your skin get close to the electrons on the surface of the table. They start screaming and pushing each other away with a monstrous force. You aren't touching wood. You're hovering on an invisible electromagnetic cushion. That solid feeling your brain receives is actually just its way of interpreting the conflict between two clouds of electric charge straining against one another. It's like two opposing factions in a crowd, standing shoulder to shoulder but never shaking hands. You spend your entire life pushing everything away, and everything is pushing back at you. Touch? That's just a sophisticated hallucination of your nervous system. Magnets. When the invisible force shows its hand. So we've agreed on one thing. The world is a scam. You don't actually touch the table. You're just feeling electromagnetic repulsion at a microscopic scale. So small the human eye can't see it. So your brain invents the feeling of contact for convenience. But magnets are different. Magnets are the rebels. They are the only thing in your daily life that allows you to witness that invisible cushion at a massive scale. When you hold two magnets and feel them push apart from several centimeters away, that is the moment the universe reveals its hand. The very force that keeps you from falling through the floor suddenly magnifies by millions, breaking out of the atomic boundary and stepping right into the palm of your hand. How does it pull that off? And most matter around you is shy. The push and pull of electrons inside your chair or table only work at an extremely short range. They are so busy dealing with their immediate neighbors that they ignore everything else. As a result, from the outside, the table looks neutral and quiet. It doesn't pull or push anything from a distance. But magnets don't play by those rules. Inside a magnet, something monstrous is happening. Trillions upon trillions of electrons, instead of acting in chaos, start to coordinate in perfect rhythm. They create a massive zone of influence reaching out into space, which we call a magnetic field. Think of it like this. If normal atoms are a noisy, bickering crowd where no one can be heard, a magnet is a stadium where tens of thousands of people are chanting one single slogan in unison. And that power is no longer trapped in the micro world. It spills out. It warps the space around it. And suddenly, you find yourself struggling against an invisible entity powerful enough to lift a truck. Magnets aren't magic. It's just the electromagnetic force flexing its muscles so you can finally see it. Every electron is a tiny compass. All right, we've established that invisible pushing forces keep the world from collapsing. But why does this iron bar grab a nail, while a piece of wood does absolutely nothing? To get that, we have to dive deeper, down into the bedrock of the atom. Think about the electron. Most people picture them as tiny dust motes orbiting a nucleus. Forget that. Change your perspective. Every single electron is actually a spinning top, rotating constantly. In physics, we call this spin. And here is the key. This rotation turns every electron into a tiny bar magnet with its own north and south pole. That's right. Your body, the table, the air around you, it's all built from billions and billions of microscopic magnets in constant motion. So, why isn't everything sticking together? Chaos. In most materials, plastic, wood, water, these electron boys are spinning in every possible direction. One spins left, one spins right, another is upside down. When a billion magnets point in a billion different directions, they cancel each other out completely. Their power is neutralized from within. The result? Magnetic silence. But in iron, nickel, or cobalt, something extraordinary happens. Because of a specific quirk in their atomic framework, the electrons don't act alone. They're like a stadium crowd suddenly doing the wave in perfect unison. They line up. They look the same way. When billions of these tiny compasses decide to point in the same direction, their strength is no longer zero. It adds up. It amplifies into a monstrous wave of magnetism you can actually hold in your hand. And that is the moment a dead piece of metal becomes an entity with the power to command the space around it. Simple. All because the little guys inside decided to join the same team game. So why does a regular iron bar fail to attract the nails on your table, but the moment it becomes a magnet, it gains that power? The difference isn't that it found some extra magic. It's about order. Imagine a stadium packed with people. In a normal object, billions of these electron boys are spinning, but every single one is looking in a different direction. One looks left, one looks right, another is staring at the ground. Because each electron is a microscopic magnet, when they are that chaotic, one guy's magnetic force just cancels out the others. A billion pluses and minuses adding up to zero. That's why your wood or plastic stays silent magnetically. But iron is a special case. In the world of iron, atoms don't like to live in isolation, and they huddle into small groups called magnetic domains. Inside each of these domains, billions of electrons suddenly decide, hey, let's all look north. The problem is, in a non-magnetized iron bar, these domains are fighting each other. This domain points left, that one points right. The overall bar remains quiet. Everything changes when you drop that iron bar into a strong magnetic field. Now, a massive drill happens. Under outside pressure, all those magnetic domains start to pivot. The ones pointing the wrong way are forced to switch sides. The ones already facing the right way expand, swallowing up the weaker holdouts. Unity, focus, accumulated power. Suddenly, the iron bar is no longer a chaotic crowd. It becomes an elite army. Billions and billions of tiny compasses are now looking in one single direction, and their strength is no longer trapped inside. It resonates, blasting out into space to create a storm of invisible force we call a magnet. It's powerful enough to bend the reality around it. Simple. All because in that tiny world, everyone finally decided to stand on the same side. Decoding the mystery. Why is glue sticky? At this point, you might be wondering. A very good question from those of you watching this video. If we never actually touch anything, because electrons are always pushing each other away, then why is glue sticky? Why doesn't everything just fall apart like grains of sand? The answer will make you look at the palm of your hand all over again. Remember the rule. Like charges repel, opposites attract. In the world of glue and adhesion, we are witnessing a game of digging and crawling at the molecular scale. When you spread glue on a surface, those long, zigzagging glue molecules, looking like tiny pythons, crawl into every microscopic crevice that looks flat to the naked eye. But more importantly, the electrons in the glue molecules and the surface material begin a sophisticated dance. Sometimes, the electrons on one side shift slightly, creating a side that is a bit positive and a side that is a bit negative. Boom! Attraction appears. The molecules aren't pushing each other anymore. They start holding hands through weak electric attractions. We call these van der Waals forces. They stand incredibly close to one another. But remember this? They still do not touch. There is an infinitesimal gap, a forbidden zone that the electrons defend to the end. So what is stickiness? Stickiness isn't a physical merging. Stickiness is when electromagnetic attraction wins over repulsion, holding two objects so close together that you need a massive mechanical force to pull them apart. And glue isn't sticky because it has hooks, but because it creates an environment where billions and billions of tiny electromagnetic attractions work all at once. You aren't stuck to the table in a physical way. You are imprisoned in a web of electrical interactions. This world isn't held together by bolts or nails. It's held together by the invisible handshakes of charged particles. The stopping point of why. Now I know what you're thinking. All right, the electrons are on the same team, but why do they attract each other in the first place? What is that force really? Are there microscopic rubber bands connecting them? Stop. This is the moment we hit the bedrock of physics. When you ask why, you're usually expecting an answer based on things you're already familiar with. You want me to say it's like a spring or like a rope pulling, but the truth is, there are no springs. There are no ropes. The electromagnetic force is a fundamental force. It isn't made of anything simpler. It just is. In physics, sometimes the most honest answer, and the hardest one to swallow, is that is simply how the universe operates. We can use math to predict it accurately to 1 part in a billion. Now we can use it to build entire civilizations, but we cannot explain it using everyday images without lying to you. Demanding a familiar explanation for a fundamental force is like asking why letters have the shapes they do. They are just the core rules of the game. Accepting that there are stopping points to knowledge doesn't make science weaker. It just shows how far we've traveled to touch the raw nature of reality. Magnets in life. Don't make the mistake of thinking this force only exists so you can stick a few memos on your fridge door. Wrong. Without that invisible push and pull we just dissected, the entire universe would crumble into smoke and dust in an instant. Look closer. Look bigger. Electromagnetism is the greatest glue in all of creation. It is the thing holding atoms together to snap into your DNA, to build your cells, and to construct the very person sitting right here. Without it, you're just a disjointed cloud of nuclear dust. No shape, no structure, meaningless. Even on a planetary scale, our Earth is actually just one monstrous magnet. It wraps us in an invisible magnetic shield, guarding all life from the violent radiation storms screaming off the sun. Without that shield, the atmosphere gets blown away, the oceans evaporate, and in a heartbeat, you see, that force you're playing with, fiddling with 2 magnets in your hands, is actually the same hardware running the entire galaxy. It isn't just physics, it's the reason life is even possible. We are living inside a symphony of invisible forces, where every single note is a tiny electromagnetic interaction with the power to move the universe. A world more fantastic than you imagine. So we've traveled together from a simple magnet on a fridge door all the way to the core laws governing the entire galaxy. You see, science doesn't strip the world of its beauty. Quite the opposite. It peels back the skin of the ordinary to reveal a reality so fantastic that no poet could ever imagine it. Next time you hold two magnets and feel that invisible cushion, smile. You aren't just playing with a toy. You're touching the symphony of the universe. You're feeling the exact same force that built your flesh and bone and keeps the stars from collapsing. This world isn't made of solid, lifeless objects. It is a web of dynamic forces, bursting with life and magnificent order. Never stop asking why. Because every time you shatter a layer of intuition, and the universe hands you back a truth 10 times more brilliant. Subscribe if you're ready to see through the other invisible things. I'll see you at the next mystery.